Soldiers. The code of the street says you don't talk to police or the feds, but the no snitching rule seems to be changing. But are there still lines you don't dare cross? Tekashi 6ix9ine exploded onto the music scene and within 2 years acquired millions of loyal fans, a multi-million-dollar record deal, and a gang affiliation he flaunted in videos. He enjoyed an unprecedented meteoric rise, says artist and Hip Hop Nation host TORAE.
It was like nothing we've seen before. Like I said, he's had records with Kanye West and Nicki Minaj. These are some of the biggest stars in music that people who have careers for 10 years can't get in the studio with them.
Equally unprecedented was his indictment on federal racketeering, drug conspiracy, and weapons charges, with key evidence coming from photos in his own Instagram account. It's a lesson for others, says criminal defense and civil rights attorney Phillip Hamilton.
There is a fine line between, entertainment, shock value, building your brand, and ending up indicted, in jail, or being put in a position where you have to snitch.
The shock effect continued after it was revealed that Tekashi made a secret plea deal as a cooperating witness and admitted to being a member of the 9 TORAE Gangsta Blood set. According to court records, he told a judge he was involved in shootings and drug dealing with other alleged gang members, charges that carry a potential sentence of 47 years to life. Many called him a snitch.
Sometimes to the extent that you're cooperating, it's not necessarily that you're naming names or that you're putting other people in positions individually to go down. Sometimes you're just providing information.
Obviously, with hip-hop catering to the youth and it being a young person's sport, I don't think it has as much credence as it once did.
Aron Gadson was released from federal prison in 2015 after doing 8 years on a drug conspiracy charge. He could have done less time if he'd snitched, but he stood tall and took responsibility for his actions. He's written a book called You've Already Won to help young men avoid ending up like Tekashi.
Me personally, I don't glorify street things. I would never tell a person it's okay to do crime just to not tell.
There are many sides to this. Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining me for this episode of Street Soldiers, Phillip Hamilton. He's a criminal defense and civil rights attorney based in Manhattan. Phillip, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is Aron Gadson. He's a former federal inmate turned entrepreneur. He's also the author of a new book called You Already Won. Aron, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Lisa.
We really appreciate it. Also joining us is TORAE. He's a hip-hop artist. He's the host of Hip Hop Nation on Sirius XM. He's also the CEO of Internal Affairs Entertainment. TORAE, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Thank you so much. First of all, just give us a sense of how people looked at Tekashi 6ix9ine, because he was, even before all of the involvement with the justice system, he was very controversial in hip-hop.
Absolutely. I think this day and age, like trolling is really big, sensationalism is really big, and he was able just to use like the antics and social media and really just like getting under people's skin to his advantage, but it all happened so fast. He really came out of nowhere, he shot up really fast, and then he got involved or started to roll out this other image, and it just like it went up really fast and it went down really fast. But I think that people who really are involved in hip hop and really know the streets kind of saw that story and where it was going to end up.
But was he taken seriously as an artist?
Absolutely. The one thing about Tekashi was, even with all the antics and the trolling and the getting under people's skin, he made really good music, and I think that's the saddest part of this whole case, is because the kid was really talented, but it just went too far. I think everything that he was doing to blow himself up and really gain his popularity, you got to know when there's a line and not to cross it, and I think he just kept pushing the boundaries. And like I said, the saddest part was that he really could have been like a great artist because he made some really good music.
No, he did, and he had a very loyal fan base. Phillip Hamilton, when you saw the charges against him, and I saw something I never really saw in my career as a reporter, the Southern District, the U.S. Attorney, they released photos of him off his social media at the bail hearing, even before there was any kind of resolution or movement with the case. What did you make of this whole Tekashi situation, just big picture?
Big picture, I think that, let's just take a step back to where he stands right now.
Okay.
Right? We've heard a lot in the media. I know we're going to be discussing a lot today, just about the snitching and, why is it that it's come to that? He was looking at 47 years as a minimum, all the way up and until life. At this point, I think you made a good point when you talk about how Tekashi kind of crossed this line from entertainer into, really some real life kind of street stuff that lots of times will end you up, if not in state Supreme Court, in federal court. And, he's in the Southern District. I think that he was very leveraged with respect to some of the actions that he took, trying to promote his career, trying to get that publicity, trying to be, all the way out there, trying to be eccentric. He crossed a line that, actually violated a lot of federal laws. And he was put into a position where he had to, take this plea that currently right now remains open, right? When you take a plea in federal court, you don't do so with a promise of any given sentence. You just generally know what your guidelines are, right? And the judge in this case made it very clear that with respect to some of these racketeering counts that he's facing, with respect to some of these weapons charges that he's facing, with respect to the narcotics charges that he's facing, he was looking at a sentence of 47 years to life. That back in the day, pre-2005, would be mandatory for the most part.
Wow. So he could have been, if this happened at another time, he could have been down for a long time. But let me bring in Aron Gadson. And Aron, you've turned your life around. You're an entrepreneur now. You're an author, and I want to talk about that transition and that journey. But just from a street perspective, what people were saying on the streets about Tekashi, do you think they expected this? That some people say he didn't know what he was getting into, that he was kind of manipulated by these older guys that were much more street smart than he was, who saw him as kind of a moneymaker and kind of jumped on board. What was your perception of that when you saw that?
A little bit of all of that. First things, most people don't know the exacts of what's going to happen to them as a result of their participation in any crime they're doing.
Right.
However, Tekashi, he followed a lifestyle based on what he wanted to look like. So, in jumping in the streets, you don't get a chance to determine how it's going to play out for you. It worked for him as far as publicity, but then you have some big shoes to fill when you have to deal with the consequences.
So you're saying it might have been, it was like in terms of publicity, it definitely worked for him, but it just, there's also a real element to that too.
The real element is the fact that if he had enough guts to say, I think you should go harm this person, or I'm this kind of guy, whether it be gangster or positive, those consequences you have to stand up to at the end of that day.
TORAE, and what about Aron brought up the lifestyle. It's like we still in hip hop, like there's still that credibility issue to be taken seriously as a rapper. You want to have that street cred. To what extent do you think he used that for that?
I mean, street cred in hip hop is very important, but also, like, hip hop is entertainment. One thing about the streets is, like, you can't actively be in the streets and actively be an entertainer. Those two worlds intertwine, but you can't exist in both. You can't have one foot in this side and one foot in that side. You can't be on social media and talking about ordering hits on people. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, real street dudes, you know what I'm saying? Like, I grew up in Brooklyn, 80s, 90s. Real street dudes didn't want to be on camera, didn't want to be seen. They were low key.
Right.
Now it feel like all of the, like, dudes who's supposed to be the realest in the street always holding their phone up. You know what I'm saying? You got people issuing and beefing battles, and I'm gonna see you and I'm gonna pull up and we gonna shoot you up on Instagram Live. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Like, you making it super hot for yourself, and I just don't understand that mentality, because the feds is watching. Like, it's not just a song title.
They don't even need hip hop police anymore. They just on people's social media.
All you gotta have is Wi-Fi. You know, it's Wi-Fi and cop some coffee and some donuts, and you know what I mean? We're putting these indictments down. It's crazy.
Wi-Fi has gotten a lot of people a lot of time.
It is
and
crazy.
I think this generation in particular, we were kind of talking about this, but how they...
Phil, let's pick up on that point. We need to take a short break right now. But the whole social media, because that's been a big sea change in the culture and also with the streets as well. This is Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We'll be right back.
Nobody made me sell drugs, so thereby I don't want to bring everybody else family in because I got caught.
Now, this is one of the things that a lot of people talk about, is that, guys that were really doing it would never talk about it, but now people put all of their business, even their dirty business, even stuff that can get them a charge, on social media. Phillip, how easy is that making it for law enforcement?
It's making it very easy. There was a time when, law enforcement would have to go through a very strenuous procedure behind getting search warrants, tapping phones, you name it, to try to get an investigative kind of leg up, right? Like on a lot of, defendants. These days, to the extent that your profile's not private, right, and you are just one of these people that are eccentrically living and trying to put forth that street life, that street image, with the guns on social media, or with, whatever it is that you're doing, all of the cash, like putting it out there, so to speak, not keeping it quiet, it can be used against you. And it's even better a lot of times than I think a lot of what, sitting around waiting on the phone for, if you're a DEA agent or if you're an FBI agent, waiting for the defendant to say something that you can circumstantially kind of tie in.
Right.
Now, I mean, this is direct evidence that you posted to your, site of, these credit card scams or, of your drug trafficking.
And it comes with the location, right? And the timestamp.
With everything. I mean, it couldn't be better, for federal law enforcement agencies, for state law enforcement agencies in terms of, the hip hop police or, however it used to be. I think life has just gotten a lot easier for them, say, than back in like 97, 98, things along those lines.
Back in those days. Aron, tell us about your situation. How did you end up in a federal prison?
Well, circa 2007, I was indicted on 841B1A. That's a federal conspiracy charge for distributing 5 kilograms or more of cocaine. It took on a variety of shapes. I had phone taps, 40,000 plus. It was
40,000 plus phone taps?
Yeah. It was a variety of people, at least 30 co-conspirators at one point, and they collected all of this information and try to structure their case. I had bugs in my car. I was followed pretty much everywhere I went. DVDs, by the stack. So they wanted to, get some evidence on all of these drugs they heard about in my area, and I was a target.
And then what happened? Tell us what happened with your case.
What happened with my case was, ultimately it came to a head. It was a few informants. It was some evidence from some parts, but as it directly pertains to me, there was no physical evidence. It was informant testimony, as well as some documents, financial background, and that was it. I ended up going to jail, and it takes a lot to fight a federal case. It took a lot of money.
But let me just ask you this: in terms of the topic, the snitching, did they ever? Because you got sentenced to what? 12 years?
12 and a half.
12 and a half years.
151 months to 188.
So, well, you know that code after you go through it, right? Mm-hmm. So did they at some point come to you and say, listen, Mr. Gadson, if you give us some more information about, where these drugs came from or whatever, you can be back home with your family in, 2, 3 to 5 or whatever?
That actually took on a variety of shapes also. Initially, they came to me and said, Aron, you're in a lot of trouble. We know you have the drugs in the area, and we want to make sure that you seem to be a great guy. We follow you around all the time. You're a good father. So let's make this burden easy on you by you coming in, and you bring your lawyer and you guys tell a story and get you out of here. So my answer was, that's never going to happen. So my lawyer, who was very close to me at the time, he said, well, I'm affected by your scenario. My family is. Your family is definitely going to be devastated because your daughter needs you, and you're the sole support of the family. Let's get you home as soon as possible. So I said, yeah, that's a bet. Let's do it. Let's get me home. So he said, all right, I'm gonna bring you in. I'm gonna bring me in. What that mean? So he said, well, I'm have you cooperate. You don't even hang out in the streets no more. You don't go around your friends. You in church, and it ain't gonna be a far stretch for you to disappear. I said, I can't do that.
Disappear?
Disappear meaning
right.
Just don't make myself visible to people that I love and like, or people that I came across in the past. What happens is this: a lot of people tell themselves it's okay to snitch based on the fact that I'm not gonna need these set of people no more. So that I'm a survivor, you're gonna die kicks in, and that self-preservation never works for a person that has a sense of right and wrong in a way of, I'm gonna stand by my convictions. Nobody made me sell drugs, so thereby I don't want to bring everybody else's family in because I got caught.
There was a lot of controversy also with another hip-hop artist, with TORAE Ave. After the shooting at the Irving Plaza, he has since said that he regrets following the code of the streets. He said if he just told cops what actually happened for real right after it happened, that he would not have been in the trouble that he's in now in terms of legal situations. TORAE, what do you think about that?
That's such a tricky one because, you know, he definitely made his living as an artist and he represented a certain thing, and it was bricks in his backpack, and it was, you know what I'm saying, like all of this street cred, you know, that he built himself up off of. And then when the situation got real and it was actual gunfire, you know, and somebody really close to him got shot, that puts you in got murdered. It puts you in a very awkward situation. You know, do you tell what you know, or do you live by this code of the street? That one is a tricky one. But I think overall, you know, you just look at the environments that we come up in, and sometimes people say, like, you know, they blame the environment, right? Like one of you guys alluded to blaming the environment. And to a degree that's real. You know, that this systemic, like these things don't just happen by coincidence.
In isolation.
Right. You know, these things happen because there's a plan and set in place, and there's some things that be brought into the community, and there's some hardships,
and
you know, that we have to deal with.
Right.
And you trying to get out of that by any means necessary, you know, and so sometimes people don't make the best decisions, you know, but I think ultimately what happened was Troy's career took a big hit. You know, Troy was one of the hottest rappers in New York City at that time, up until that point. And since then, I think his career has definitely, you know, gone down in notoriety and credibility since that whole incident happened. And rest in peace, you know, to the family of his partner that was murdered.
Right, exactly.
Rest in peace to him, and condolences to the family.
Right, to the McFadder family, definitely.
Sure.
Aron, when you heard about Troy Ave saying, "Oh, the code of the streets, I shouldn't follow it. I should have talked to them. I should have cooperated. I should have done all of that." What did you think when you hear, having gone through what you go through, when you hear stuff like that? What do you think?
I mean, he has a great point. What happens in this instant is, this is a man that chose to follow a certain ethic. Somebody challenged his life. He, by all intents purposes, defended his life.
Right.
It was some reckless nature to the defense. He came into a crowd of people, he shot a gun. Unfortunate scenario, his friend got killed. At the end of the day, no matter how tough he was, people are going to turn their back on him because his circumstances shifted from him being a winner to him being a possible loser for life.
Right.
The street ethic or code that he's referring to, that's a myth that I read, I can't tell him his experience has led him down the wrong path. That's how he feels today because it's some truth to that.
Right.
Nobody could raise my daughter for me. When I was in jail, nobody could take her to school every day or help her potty train, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when you follow these codes, it come with a big price. That man lost his livelihood, or a lot of his life,
and
reputation, just by trying to defend himself and stick to this code that, you know, seems to be ever so evaporating as time goes on.
Phil, what about that in terms of the people knowing what they're getting into? You've represented many clients, Eastern District, Southern District, the criminal court, the state criminal courts. Do they know what they're getting into? Like what Aron said, he took responsibility for his action, but do they, or is it just so glamorized that they just think they can beat the system?
Generally, you know, I think I may have to go with what you just said, right? I mean, it's specifically what client am I dealing with? You know, what's their level of intellect? What's their level of experience with the system? You know, those, you know, clients, for instance, who've been in your situation, right? Who I deal with, who've served time, who've kind of been through the process. They come in with a different stature. They come in like with an understanding, less anxiety about what the system is going to bring. And in that realm, I see them tending to make decisions that are based like less on fear and more pragmatic.
I want to thank you all for being with us for this episode of Street Soldiers. Attorney Phillip Hamilton, great to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Great to be here.
Aron Gadson, great to have you with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Thank you very much.
And good luck with the book. You already won.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. And TORAE, thank you so much for being with us, and keep up the great work talking about the whole hip-hop scene and everything, and getting the word out there. We appreciate it. And thank you for watching this episode of Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. Let's push for peace.